All right, Aaliyah, let's take a look at your essay. Emily, format first. Everything here is good. Karma at its finest. I guess since you talk about karma a lot in the first paragraph, so I know that's what it's about. Maybe something a little less specific. Um, not even mention maybe karma, or maybe mention a different aspect of karma, something like that. It's not bad, but I think it can be stronger. Love the quote that you use at the beginning. I think that's a really good quote that fits perfectly with the theme. You cited it wrong, and we'll get to the works cited page and talk about that. But then here's what I really want you to work on, Aaliyah. And for the test, this isn't a bad thing, but for a formal essay, you can be stronger. As soon as you say this quote, don't jump right into, oh, this relates to Macbeth. Okay? Elongate, expand on this concept that is introduced in this quote, wax philosophical a little bit about the quote, and then lump it into it relates to Shakespeare's Macbeth due to displaying the aftermath of karma. Okay, so really elongate that quote. Now, here's what I'm not. I think your thesis is okay. I like the idea of getting back to its origin. I hope you really emphasize that concept in the body paragraphs, because I think that's probably the most original part of this thesis. But the thing that I don't like is I feel like you repeat yourself a lot here. Like, when someone causes pain, they will get pain. When he causes pain, tragedy is cast upon him. Okay, so I feel like you repeat yourself a ton. Now, I get what the paper's about. I understand where you're going. Here are the three people you're going to highlight with having agonies. So anyways, I get where you're going, but I just feel like you're repeating yourself a lot, and then this just repeats what you've already repeated. So I'm hoping that this could be stronger to make this a little bit stronger, if that makes sense. But we'll get to that as we get into your body paragraphs. All right, first you need a really strong topic sentence in here that kind of acts like a mini thesis, and I don't see one yet. When you write analysis essays, you have to assume that whoever's reading it has read the play or book or poem that you're talking about. So just say Macbeth kills Duncan. I know that's what happened at the beginning. I know Malcolm was one of his sons. Again, you don't have to write that. No comma here, because it's not a complete sentence afterwards. Now, after Macbeth blames Malcolm for the killing, and this is where I would have a hard time, Aaliyah, justifying this, because I don't think it's Macbeth, because it's like the whole group of them had the conclusion that Malcolm and Dombey didn't because they left. So I don't know if that's necessarily a true statement that Macbeth blames Malcolm for the killing. The whole group came to that conclusion. He's forced out of Scotland, explaining it as the daggers and men's smiles. This is a really awkward embedded quote. So go back through and reword that, because it actually, the reason he leaves is because there's daggers and men's smiles. So you could word it like that, but how does that help? You know what I mean? Like, you could I definitely see that you could justify that into Macbeth, because he kind of is that guy with the dagger in his smile, but you don't do that here. So embed that quote and then really make it apply to what you're trying to prove. So he has an immense deal of power, which allows for plenty to disappear because of him. Now, this would make more sense when you think about Fleance disappearing, and a couple other examples. All right, so then we get into a lot more plot. He goes back to England, joins forces with Macduff. All right, so the two defeat Macbeth subsequently, showing that the almighty tyrant was defeatable despite the power he obtained. Now, since Macbeth was conquered, Malcolm gained the crown. It's a good example of how good karma gives someone a favorable outcome. See, and this is what I was afraid that you were going to fall into the trap of, which was just to say, okay, after this happens, Macbeth gets bad karma, someone else gets good karma, the end. And so I don't want that to happen. What I was talking about with this whole idea of origin, think about this, like, Macbeth used his power to gain the crown. But at the end, it's Malcolm who gains the crown from Macbeth. But think about the origin of that. The origin is Macbeth ultimately wanted the crown and took it despite the fact that it wasn't his. And then Malcolm wants the crown, but he wants it because it's rightfully his and was taken from him. And then you could tie that concept into karma after that. So just be careful with how you use your mean in here, Aaliyah, because it's not a great example of analysis in here. I know where you want to go with it, you just didn't quite get there. And I would argue even, Aaliyah, in an analysis essay for AP, just looking at the next paragraph, even though I haven't read it, it's not long enough. You're just going to have to pack this thing with more analysis and with some better examples and probably a stronger topic sentence, because here's your transitional sentence, which is fine. I think it could be stronger. He was killed as a result of Macbeth's desire for the throne, which this is kind of your topic sentence, which again could be stronger, but look how short it is. Look at line length, Aaliyah, in here. How many of your lines are really simple sentences? How many complex sentences do you have? Something like that to make your writing that much stronger. All right, so you start off talking about Banquo, which displays his desire, ambition to keep his throne. But again, think about karma. The reason that he kills him is to keep his throne. But when he kills him, I get that it starts to make him insane. But I would even argue him seeing the dagger before he kills Duncan, he kind of already displayed these qualities before that. So I don't know if you can justify that. An example is at the banquet, no comma. When Macbeth freaks out, he finally tells the ghost to avaunt. So you would use a lowercase a and quit his sight. And then, before you even analyze Banquo, you jump into Fleance, which I will tell you, do not assume in an analysis essay will probably scar him for life. We don't know that. He's going to grow up without a father and keep the memory of his murder. On the bright side, after his father's murdered, there's a bright side. There's a possibility of Fleance becoming king someday. From this, one sees that doing good leads to the high honorable roles everyone longs for. Okay, so how does Banquo display that? How is Banquo getting a high honorable role? How is Fleance getting a high honorable role? Which you could tie into the whole king someday, but it doesn't happen, at least as the play ends. So, again, I don't think you've really touched on what you needed to touch on. There's no real clear analysis in here of the topic. So you really got to add more to that paragraph, Aaliyah, to make it stronger. I would love to see some more embedded quotes everywhere, not just this paragraph, but in every paragraph. Try to have those embedded quotes very prominent and helpful to you in your discussion of this concept of karma. I'd still argue, Leah, you need a better topic sentence in here as well. So just be careful of that you write a better one. Since Macbeth kills Macduff's entire family, he is vengeful. Now, who are you talking about? Because you're talking about Macbeth, but it sounds like Macduff's because it's closer to the pronoun here. So just be careful how you word this sentence. Here's a good example of your embedded quote being too long. Like, look at how many things you have to change here. Just say he wants to get Macbeth, quote, within his sword's length, quote, so that he can destroy him for what he's done, whatever. Okay? So, embed a little bit better there. All right. He slays him, finally give him the ending he deserves. Now, you didn't talk about this, but remember he talks about he wants to kill Macbeth in order to avenge his family. There's a quote in scene 7 of Act 5 that he says that after Macbeth kills young Seward. He says, let me find him or my ghosts of my family will haunt me. So add that in there because that's also, he's kind of avenged his family at that particular point as well. Macduff, loyal and courageous, earns the satisfaction of killing and taking revenge of Macbeth. I like that line. He gets kicked from the throne and from life. He gets kicked from life. That's kind of an interesting euphemism, showing that the torment he produces does no one good in the future. But again, you haven't brought up the concept of everything goes back to its origin. How does that work with this ending? What can you do to add more analysis in here, Aaliyah? Because it just isn't very strong right now. All right, Aaliyah. We start your conclusion with your quote. Then we summarize our main points, what we talked about, and then we end on a strong clincher, which you don't have. So make sure your conclusion is in that order. A lot of this, is good information, but some of this almost seems like it should have been in the body, about creating your own fate, something like that. So go back and figure out how to do that. So order is fine. The way you put it is fine. You got an extra space here you need to get rid of. This is what should be in parentheses after your karma saying at the beginning, not the author. So that goes in parentheses after the karma saying. Because remember, works cited means I can go look at the works cited page and see where that quote came from, and it's got to be whatever's first here. So you just want to add that at the front. All right, Aaliyah, got to do much better about analysis. A couple organizational things. It's a good start, but we need to keep going on it. So hopefully we'll see a rewrite out of you.